Mention the original smart car to just about anybody and they will know what you mean. Yes, for much of my test in this smart #3 Brabus this week, I've had a lot of people coming up asking me, what is it? And it's probably a fair enough question. Smart in this form, a partnership between Mercedes, Daimler and Volvo, as in Geely, has been around for about a year now, coming up on a year anyway in Ireland, with #1 and this #3 model. And in some ways, if you've ever driven a Polestar 2, then you'll get a good sense of what it's like to drive a #3, particularly in this Brabus trim, which has 428 brake horsepower. It's a dual motored, fully electric car with a range of meant to be above 400 kilometers. I think if you drive it the way it's kind of intended, you'll be certainly in the 300, maybe 200 mile ballpark figure. So some of the good stuff about the car, then, it has things like 22 kilowatt AC onboard charging, depending on what trim you go for. There's Pro Plus, there's this Brabus, there's an anniversary version which is on sale for a limited amount of time at the moment. This one is about €56,000 and you can get an entry-level car from about €38,000. So there is quite a variance between the different price points in this car. Now, because this is the Brabus version, it has all the power, all the trimmings like the red seat belt, the nicer wheels, Brabus badges pretty much all over the car. But it does come at a price because the ride quality is quite harsh in it and there's a lot of tech on board. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Just give you a look at the difference in this version compared to the previous #3 I've had on the channel, for example. So you get these Brabus stitching into the headrest, red seat belts. What you get on your jeans on the pockets, but they're stitched into the seat. There's perforations here. There's nice fake leather and Alcantara. There's lots of red stitching around the car. This kind of high gloss grey which hides everything out of sight. And a suede Alcantara steering wheel complete with more red leather stitching. So you do get a sense throughout the car that it is a different type of model of #3. The #3 sits on the same platform as something like the Volvo EX30. It's called an SEA platform. And you wouldn't think it because in the back of this car there's a lot more legroom. So by that I mean you get, well, all this extra space, and that front seat is moved a little bit forward. But even my driving position seat, there's still decent room there compared to the quite squished EX30. Plenty of visibility from the front windscreen as well. It does kind of feel at one with the road. It's quite a low down roadster feeling car, but all this glass. And then there's this huge panoramic glass roof that goes the whole way along the car. And again, adds to a sense of space. And much like the front, the back has nice touches, more red seat belts. They haven't skimped on any of the interior, more red stitching over the door cards. It's a Beats system for tunes in this particular version of the car. So you'll see the Beats logo just down here, and the little tweeters up here also getting the same treatment. Things like getting a dog box into the boot, for example, proved a little bit tricky for me, and I don't have a Doberman, just for the record. Up front then in the #3 Brabus version, one thing you're going to spend a lot of time using is the screen. Good resolution and nice modern looking maps in this really large screen. One thing you're going to be spending a lot of time with is this set of buttons here. You'll go into settings and you'll want to turn off every single time the lane departure warning, the lane assist warning, because that will just tug at the steering wheel too much when you're trying to drive. And the same, the visual and audio. You'll leave blind spot on more than likely, but the visual audio for speed warnings, you'll need that just on visual, which, as you can see here, you pop that on, you get another warning. And yeah, there's lots of warning aids. Another one I had to get my head around even this morning was it is aware of people approaching you in traffic too quickly. So I had a woman who repeatedly was a late breaker in commuting traffic this morning, and the car kept beeping me as if there was an impact pending. You'll get beeps for blind spot, which is fine, but even if you've parked up and you're getting your kids out of the car, there'll be people on the footpaths walking along to school, and the car will be beeping to tell you that there's something in your blind spot and you're not even in the car. So in one sense, you can look at the safety gadgets as being really, really good. The other way you can look at them is they're really, really intrusive. Under this little lid, you'll find some charging points. Now, if you have an iPhone, you'll need to plug it in here to get CarPlay to work. Having said that, there is built-in Spotify. I just haven't bothered setting it up because I'm not in the car for too long. So that's there. Something else that's very useful is the overview camera, which is excellent and actually will give you blind spot views in traffic when you're indicating at a junction and stuff like that. So that aspect of it is really good. Plenty of detail in this driver instrument screen as well. It's wide, it's bright, nearly too bright at night time, but tells you all you need to know. Somebody also asked me, was that the B from Bunsen? So I'm sure everyone wants a burger right now, but the answer to that is no. Brabus, not Bunsen. On the charging curve today, so it's meant to do about 150 kilowatt charging. That's battery temperature and range all specific, because that's fair enough. An average should be about 100 kilowatt charging. What I found, and again, I was charging from a state of charge above 50%, but it was giving somewhere between 35 and 45 kilowatt charging speeds after a while. Not initially, but it certainly wasn't anywhere near the claimed speeds that Smart are putting out there. So I'm just going through the rigmarole now of driving settings. It is a little bit painful to have to every time. So we go through lane departure, off, okay. Lane assist, off, okay. Assistance then. Blind spot, leave that on. Visual for the speed. Now there's still a driver attention. It just does a lot of beeping, okay? So be prepared for that. If you're okay with beeping, you'll love this car. You really will love it. As I've promised, there's a lot of performance in it, so as soon as you put that foot down, you get instant acceleration. It does corner quite well. It does remind me in lots of ways as the Performance Polestar 2 models that you can get. It's got that same burst of energy, and the cornering is sharp enough. Again, I also have to always pre-warn you with that statement by saying it is a 1.8 ton car. Bit of tyre noise, could live with it. It's also quite a harsh ride. I'm on a decent road here now, but depending especially on wheel size, you know, it is a performance car, so it's not really set up to be soft. You can't mess with dampers or anything like that in it. At least in the Polestar 2 performance ones, you have the Olins that you can mess around with. There's none of that here in this Brabus version. It is a neck-snapping burst of power. Not quite 4 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. So plenty of straight line performance, a mix of handling into corners performance, but by all means a quick car. We're talking about a 62 kilowatt hour usable battery, and consumption is around about 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And that would suggest, my style of driving at least, in reasonably favourable temperatures, it's 19 degrees, you'll just see a little over 300 kilometers on a single charge. If you drive it like Miss Daisy, who someone once commented and said, Miss Daisy didn't actually drive, she had a chauffeur. It's a fair point. But anyway, I don't think you're going to see the 400 that they're claiming, unless you really do drive this car slowly. In other words, what's the point? And just get yourself the cheaper, less, you know, they're not slow models. different levels of regen braking that you can apply to assist you with some of the braking should you wish. Some of them are quite harsh. There's also a heat pump, not on every single model, but most of the models, which is good. That doesn't use your battery then for heating the car on cold mornings and cooling the car on hot days. It just gives you a little bit more range, and actually it's probably something that you would want in this car, because as I said, you probably in real life are looking at 300-ish kilometers. You can make electric cars fun to drive, but it has its drawbacks. It's quite a harsh setup. It's still heavy. We're not there yet when it comes to out and out performance EVs. Not for this money anyway. Porsche Taycan and stuff, Audi e-tron GT, also really quick cars. We've seen some of the hypercars now from BYD that will be available in the not too distant future. It's still not going to give you the thrills of a petrol performance car with this brake horsepower. I mean, it's only got, I think it actually has more brake. I'm trying to remember from memory now. Once upon a time I had a BMW M3 and that had 420 brake horsepower. This has more, but it doesn't have a V8. So you can compare them on paper, but that's probably it. So who exactly is going to buy a smart #3 Brabus version? Possibly a Tesla Model 3 Performance customer who wants to be able to trade in their car in a few years' time rather than go back to Tesla, who don't want their own cars back as a trade-in. That's one potential customer. Performance-wise, similar, but there's definitely more power in the Tesla. So it's, in one sense, it's kind of a bit of a one-trick pony. It's really fast in a straight line. It's not bad in corners for a 1.8 ton electric car, but 428 brake horsepower, loads of power. But you might get tired of that. And then you'll be happy enough with the Pro Plus version with all the spare change that you can use for other things that life requires. So I think it's going to be a fairly niche market for this car. Maybe smart car fans from 20 years ago who are now a bit older, have a bit more cash. Maybe they'll be interested in it. And it's certainly good looking. But for me, it's still very expensive. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Can't believe we're filming in September here in Dublin because it's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for coming with me this far on the video today. Hope you enjoyed this video review of the #3 Brabus.